Hello, everyone. On today's show, we have Paul Richardson. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, so good to see you guys. It's been a long time.
A long time. And I'm not exactly sure the last time we spoke in person. It's funny how memories go, because I'm not totally sure where we were the last time, but I remember distinctly the first time I ever spoke to you, or one of the first times. Let me see if you remember. We were with a group of people, and you had made us a delicious seafood meal. And I thought to myself, I want to be friends with this guy, the cook. Little did I know you would become Paul Richardson to me, the great Paul Richardson. But do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
But I've always loved cooking. I love cooking.
We had just finished a discussion. I don't remember the context.
What house? Was it at my house in East LA?
That's a good question. But it had been at the end of some kind of, it was probably some discussion on the Dark Night of the Soul, something deep. And then you made us food, and it's like, who is this guy? And then somebody, oh, that's Robbie's friend. Oh, we start talking. And so we're gonna sort of do something different. We're gonna start on the today, and then maybe go back to that beginning moment. So Charis Academy. Yeah. You're in Malang, in Indonesia, correct?
Yep.
And somewhere in the early 2000s, you had a vision. You felt like there was a vision to start this. But what was that moment? What was that point that gave you that vision to start Charis Academy? It's K through 12, correct?
It is now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
As well as a teacher's college.
Oh, wow.
And other things as well.
Okay.
This is a big question, so just stop me. Just shut me down if I'm rolling along too long. Okay.
No.
So we moved here in '99. I took a position as a director of an international school, which means children of Western people or Aussies, Koreans, and so forth, but not Indonesian kids. And that role was going awesome. It was just rolling along, built a brand new campus, state of the art, everything beautiful. But meanwhile, I was just on my extra time, I was just going out in the community and then just studying education. I was finding schools, interviewing people, trying to figure out what was going on in the world of education in the country, and especially Christian education. And I started traveling further and further and getting more involved, and then just started realizing that maybe I could really contribute to education in this country. And maybe, I started dreaming a little bit and praying. But then one night, and I had just gone on a weekend trip. It was Sunday night. I had gone to visit a large Christian high school, like a trade school. And then I came back and I went to sleep, and about maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and just dreams of the future just pouring into my soul. And it was extremely an emotional experience. And it changed my life until this very moment. I've never been the same. My vision for my life, the clarity of the purpose of my life has never been so strong. And so that was in 2000. So we're going on now 21 years since then. And it was the vision for a Christian school that would kind of reveal to this world, in Southeast Asia, what is it like? What does it look like when, in the environment of a school campus, the kingdom of God is there, and it's alive, and it's thriving, and what does that look like in the context of mentoring and developing kids and giving kids a hope for their future and building leaders and building people who become, rise up and overcome the challenges that await them in their future. So needless to say, it was incredibly exciting, and it just launched me in a totally new direction. And then it just took me in this kind of faith journey where I just had to keep trusting God for miracles time after time after time, and just overcoming financial challenges and finding and developing teachers and building a curriculum, and of course recruiting. Started with about 65 kids in grades 1 through 4, and then just through the years now have developed it and grown it to, it's about 1,000 kids now. I think we're just crossing the threshold of 1,000 coming this July. So it's just been a beautiful experience, just being carried along by that all these years.
But as you've gone through those years, Paul, and I was thinking about it, because you've been there, wow, plus 20 years now, correct? So while you're there, throughout the years, have you been able to receive like confirmations over the years, like saying, yeah, I am exactly where I'm at? I mean, obviously the numbers are higher, so that there's one, I guess, but have there been other kind of confirmations you go, yeah, this is it. I'm right where I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, all the time, every single day. And they come in different varieties. One would just be when the alumni come back. And you can see what kind of people they are, what kind of character they have, what kind of dreams they have, what are they doing with their lives, and how do they think, and what do they value? And you just talk to them and realize, wow, this dream really has become a reality. And kind of the vision would be, I mean, again, I could talk about the vision all day long, but succinctly, I read a book years ago about the domains of society. So you have, for example, the domain of government, you have the domain of technology, you have maybe the film industry, the entertainment industry, you have the arts, communications, you have media. Then you have your entrepreneurs and your business people, your corporate world, you have your agriculture. So you have these domains, and within these domains, there are people who relate to each other and speak a common language. And so the idea was that we would choose some of the most strategic domains in this country that we felt were underdeveloped, and just try to focus on that. That would be the vision of our school, is to, from the time children are very small, start developing and preparing them to rise into the world of medicine, and medicine, technology, and leadership, in government, in entrepreneurship. Those would be the main ones, as well as, of course, education. And just that our kids, would become the next generation of awesome teachers in this country.
Paul, that's the first thing that strikes me when I look at your school and I research it, is it strikes me as very highly ambitious. You talk about medicine and creating leaders in the community. What does that do when you raise such high standards? What does that do to the psychology of the school, the students, the teachers? What have you noticed?
Yeah, it takes years to build a school culture, because when people become teachers, then basically what most of them are doing is just repeating what they experienced. So whatever they had growing up, they feel like, well, that's education. That's what it means to be a teacher. And so subconsciously, they're just modeling the people who taught them. And when you're trying to start something revolutionary and different, it takes years then to kind of like retrain people's minds to say, hey, you're capable of so much more than that. And so it just takes kind of this relentless building of a vision and repeating it and then modeling it. And when you see it, praise it. But in terms of just the expectations, I think I would say it like this. Indonesian schools actually have very high expectations, but they just don't know how to apply it. They don't know how to motivate kids. So the schools generally become more like militaristic, and they're extreme use of corporal punishment, and the kids just hate school. But it's kind of this boot camp for life, you know, that kind of thing. And so, you know, so the challenge for me was, can we develop kids who would be strong and tough, problem solvers, overcomers, independent, wise, critical thinkers, leaders, but who were also loving and caring and lived with a deep sense of purpose in their lives and had a strong connection with God, and were eventually raising families and becoming leaders in their communities and models, you know. So, and I think we've been able to tap into that and find that beautiful chemistry.
How have you been able to, because, you know, I know you worked, before you went to Indonesia, you worked in education before you got there. I'm sure that gave you a lot of things to draw from. But how about the parents? How different are they from the parents that we deal with here in the States, right? Is it the same? Is it different? 'Cause I'm thinking, as you're sharing right now, I'm thinking, who's partnering with you? I know the teachers probably are, and I'm sure the students are starting to buy in, but are the parents a part of the stakeholders, or how does that work?
Okay, well, remember that I haven't been a part of education in the States for 22 years, and a lot has changed.
Sure.
And I realize that.
Sure.
If I were to go back and try to teach in LAUSD, I would be so irrelevant right now. I would be so lost, to be honest with you. But just based on what I know now as an outsider, I'm living in Asia. Okay, so Asian people generally have a very, very high value for education, and so there's a very strong parent support. But on top of that, we're very intentional about involving parents and including parents in a way that you just don't see, in a way that you've never seen anywhere, at least that I've ever seen in the States. So, for example, every teacher would have a communication group. Like we all use WhatsApp here. We don't have iPhones here.
Okay.
But, so every teacher has all their parents, and there's constant communication between the teacher and the parents. As a group, teacher and the parent specifically, there's communication going both ways. There's feedback all the time. Parents always know what's happening in the classroom, what our goals are, when are the tests going to be. They know what happened during the day. They know, like, they have just very clear communication about, is there a field trip coming up, or and so then also parents are welcome to just come on campus and come right in the classroom. They're very welcome. They would be welcome to come in and help, maybe like take some scissors and help like a teacher's aide. It's no problem. We would welcome that, because we're, you know, we feel like we're serving parents, we're serving families. And so we're partnering with entire families. So you have the mother, the father, the child, and then the teacher comes in and is serving that group. And even is helping with the development of that child, and also very aware of the parenting philosophy that's in that family.
You mentioned feedback. By the way, Paul, if you hear feedback here from this place where we're recording, it's because March Madness is going on in this house. And so we apologize.
I don't know what's going on. Oh,
good.
Oh, boy.
So
are you guys missing the game right now? Are you kind of like...
No, we're here with our brother on Easter Sunday, brother. So come on. We're in the right place.
Now,
good answer, right?
All right, let's keep this conversation short then. So you can
No, it's over. It's over.
No. So you had left a comment on one of the videos, one of our videos, and I wanted you to sort of expand on it. It was very intriguing this idea of rewarding effective teachers based on evaluation. I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be surprising to us, but we should be reminded of that concept. And also administrators as mentors. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Okay, let's start with the second question first. I think of it like this. If you want to fly an airplane, you need a pilot. Okay. If you want to take a voyage across the ocean, you need the captain of the ship. Somebody who's taking responsibility and actually steering the ship. And it would be absurd to think of a corporate, let's say a corporation without a CEO, or without a board, or without someone casting the vision or saying this is where we're going. And so I remember when I was a young teacher, I remember my first year of teaching especially, just drowning, just being overwhelmed, by classroom management issues, just by the work, the preparation, the lesson plannings, getting ready every day, and really having very little support. Now, this is not Saya. This is my, actually, Saya was not that overwhelming for me. I loved it, actually. But then I went to.
We're going to get to Saya.
Okay. After Saya, I went to work for LAUSD, and I taught in Charles Drew Middle School, kind of in the Watts area. Yeah. So, like 2,000 kids in the school. I think one principal and like 5 vice principals, and never saw them. Never saw them. Right. I was just it was just like, here I am with my books. And so there's 2 things going on. One is teachers, generally speaking, I'm not talking about everyone, but teachers first of all, they feel embarrassed about the hardships and maybe the lack of organization, and they don't want their superiors or their, the leaders in the school seeing it or witnessing it. They're kind of afraid for their job. And there's just a natural human tendency to avoid accountability. It's just part of human nature. Yeah. Then you have principals that are just buried in paperwork and who just stuck in an office. So what you have is schools, and this is all around the world. It's not just in the States, but you have schools that are leaderless. They have administrators, lots of administrators, but they don't have leaders. And a leader is someone who's actually leading teachers and is passionately, heavily involved in casting the vision for the school, who is watching what's happening inside the classrooms, right inside. And like this idea that a school principal is not allowed to walk into a classroom without permission, or like it's like once a year, and then the teacher gets like 2 weeks to prepare. It's ridiculous. Right. If you imagine any other working world, imagine engineers, and they're working on designing an airplane, and you're not allowed to have your work checked. Like nobody would want to fly on that plane. So anyways, I had the incredible privilege of like hiring my entire staff right out of college. Wow. 0 experience teaching. And then starting them fresh right out of college. And then kind of building them up as teachers. And not just me. Many others were involved in this project more in the early days. I had a lot of help with that from really highly experienced teachers from the States that came out and spent periods of time helping to train our teachers. So this is what I would say is like, for any teacher, like, does your school have a leader? Do you know when you're doing really well or not? Do you know what areas you need to grow in? Or are you just kind of left on your own? Okay, so then the other question was about pay.
I will just say though, Paul, with what you just said. I think what you're prescribing is the perhaps antidote to some of the friction between administrators and teachers, because it's very different if a teacher hears, I'm here to mentor you, or I'm here to support you.
Yes.
That's a very different word, communication. And so I like it. The other thing is what I asked you about is the idea. Somebody else brought this up. Something similar to what you said is that it isn't that difficult to identify ineffective teachers. It's not brain science here. You mentioned that, and somebody else, it might have been Sonia, but what sort of expand on that, and the idea of this can actually be a good thing. It shouldn't be threatening to teachers, some of these ideas.
Well, I understand the challenge because teacher evaluation is extremely subjective. It's impossible for it to not be subjective because teaching is subjective. And so that creates a dilemma because teachers might say, well, I got a bad evaluation, but I didn't get enough sleep the night before or something like that.
Yeah.
And I get that. But like you said, subjectively, as someone who's been in education for now, I don't know, almost 30 years, I can walk into a classroom and within 3 minutes, I can easily tell you the quality of the teacher. Even without even seeing the teaching, I can just look at the classroom. You can see what's happening with the kids, how engaged they are in the material, how excited they are to learn in this place. And so, yes, it's subjective, but it's also really clear. And so for me, kind of so we have our system of paying teachers that is completely objective. How many years have you taught? Okay. What's your education? Like what kind of education have you attained? And then there would be little things like maybe they've gotten some extra accreditations in certain areas.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's your basic structure. And so, but then you might call it almost like bonus pay. So we have our basic structure that's objective, but then the biggest category that we use for determining salaries is the quality of the teacher.
Wow.
So, and it doesn't always necessarily mean the longer that they've taught, the more valuable they are to the school. And maybe one question that actually is at the heart of it for me is, okay, if I lost this teacher, if this teacher came into my office tomorrow and said, this is my last year, I'm teaching, I'm going to be transferring to another school next year. How much of a crisis would it create in my school? So you have two things. One is the quality of the teacher, but also what does the teacher teach? So for example, it's much harder to find physics teachers than PE teachers, no offense to PE teachers.
Hey.
And I've done it, I've taught PE.
Right.
But
physics is physics.
Yeah.
I think somebody said physics is the language of God, or calculus is the language of God. Anyway,
I can see that. So, and then you have like certain people, they just so good for the school. They love the kids. They're there late. They're taking time after school to work with certain kids that are struggling. And they're not doing it for the hours. They're just doing it because they love what they do. And so you see that. Their supervisor sees that and they say, oh man, this teacher is a keeper. Now that's going to affect their salary. So then what happens is over a long stretch of time, your teachers who are passionate about what they do, they're putting in the work, they have a great attitude, they're loving the kids. So these teachers are getting paid higher and more money. And so you're keeping them. And then the others that are just kind of seeing it as a job or a bridge to something else, they're just increasingly seeing this isn't the place I want to have my career. So Yeah, that's basically the concept. And then you do imagine that you're using this system, then over 15, 16 years, you have this critical mass of these awesome teachers that are your older teachers, right? They're your most experienced teachers, and have such a profound influence on the younger teachers. So that a younger teacher that comes in right away just is feeling, oh boy, this is not normal here. This is not what I expected. This is pretty heavy duty stuff here at the school, you know. And so then they adapt really fast to that. So that's, yeah.
I was going to share, as you're sharing that, looking at your experience, and I know it's been 20 something years, but I know as a teacher, I'm always kind of curious what my administrator, what his or her experience is. Has that helped you? Have you had conversations with your staff saying, there was one time where, I worked in Compton, and this is kind of, I worked with a sold out enrichment program, which for what time, I guess it was a charter school. But do you ever go and pick those berries and say, hey, this is, and share it with your staff and say, this is kind of things I've experienced and bring that to the table?
Definitely. And also, I still teach.
Oh, wow.
And I require all my principals to teach.
Whoa, wait, what's going on here? Wait.
So you, as a director, admin, teach. It's fascinating. That's so fascinating because
without teaching.
I'm so glad you say that, because this is something I thought of this. I've been telling people lately, I respect my admins. They're nice people.
Yeah.
They're pretty competent too, for sure, at where I teach. But I really, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking each one of these should teach at least one class and put skin in the game.
Yeah, when I was getting my administrative credential, it came. I guess the topic or the program was like a servant leader, and they preached that. They said, you know what? And my professor said, hey, I go in the classroom, and when I heard that, I go, oh, I guess that's how it is. And then when I went and looked around, I didn't see anybody doing it. But you're saying that's what happens where you're at.
Yeah, and I have to set the example for that. So maybe one of my biggest fears as a leader is becoming irrelevant. So I don't want to be that guy who stands up and talks to the whole staff and everybody's just kind of going like this, because I don't have a clue about what's actually going on or what people are actually thinking and feeling. So in order to prevent that from happening, I need to be teaching and be feeling the pressure of teaching. Now, I don't teach full time. Like you said, I only teach 2 classes a day.
Only? That's quite a bit.
But the rest of the day I'm doing other things. But that keeps me in touch with the students, for one thing. I know their names. I know what's happening in their lives, like in terms of just Gen Z. That's
right.
That's the group we're working with right now, and I feel like I know them. I understand them. I seek, and so that helps me be a better leader, because I'm actually in touch with the kids and relate to them, talk to them every day.
Now I'm curious, what are you teaching?
11th grade Bible class.
2 11th grade Bible classes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Actually 3. Sorry.
3.
High school just moved to 3 classes per grade. So.
Oh, wow.
So you're there. It's a Christian school, and your parents worked with the Sawi people of New Guinea, and what kind of influence did they have either on the school or on your teaching? Because I remember going over there to your parents' house, and I mean, there was a lot of learning on my end, but speak to that for a moment, if you don't mind.
Well, I can't say that my parents had a high value for education, to be honest with you. They both got their bachelor's. They went to Bible college. So I wasn't, raised in a home that kind of like was raising kids to go to Harvard or anything like that. It wasn't. But and also in terms of their ministry is church, focused on church. However, I did see, so they're working with a tribe out in the jungle, And I'm a little kid growing up, and I see my mom. She was a nurse, and she had her clinic, and there would be long lines of sick people or injured people from like battles or hunting and stuff, and they would come in, and she would help them. And then she had her Bible study groups with mostly with young, like teenage girls, and she would be teaching them how to read first, and then sharing scriptures with them. So, you know, in that kind of work, like I always valued that. I idolized it. But I had to come to a place in my own life where I said, that's just not really who I am. That's not how my God created me. And so I have to begin to really celebrate the way that I'm designed. And I'm actually designed to be more of a disciple maker, or someone who is more of an expert in human development, and how people grow and change and transform over a long period of time of mentoring. And so when I just really embraced that, then my life, in terms of my work, just really took off. So, but I will say this, and this is just a little bit of, just for my dad, just to give him a little credit. Just a few things that were very like Kairos moments. You remember that word, Kairos moment? Yeah. From the old days, that was a big word. I love that. Several Kairos moments in my life. So one is that first year of teaching, and I was at my parents' house, and I was just ready to give up. And I just said, I told my dad, I said, I can't handle this. It's too hard. Like, these kids are just like jumping off the walls, and everything I try, it doesn't work. And my dad said, maybe some of them have never heard their names spoken respectfully. So he said, maybe, like, don't just let them in the class. Don't just let them like wander into the class, but ask them to line up outside the class. Now, this is 7th grade, okay? So he said, ask them to line up outside the class, and then welcome them into the classroom, and respectfully speak their names as they walk in the class. And then he said, the second thing is, in the mornings, get there early and just go to every desk in your classroom and pray for the students that are going to be sitting in that desk today. And I started doing those two things, and it really was revolutionary. Wow. It really was. It was, so my dad was never a teacher, but he gave me that advice, and it was incredible for me.
I have to say this, great, that was really, really cool. Great stories there. Your dad wasn't a teacher, but he's one of the few people, I put him in a category in which, and I can name the other people I put, there's about 5 of them, that whenever I'm around them, I would just be quiet and want to listen to every word he would say. Just a lot of wisdom. And by the way, I recommend his 2 books. I think he has more 3 books. I recommend all his books, but in particular, Eternity in Their Hearts and Peace Child. Some of the passages in Peace Child are just jaw-dropping. If you just sit back and read it, some of the cannibalistic tribal actions, tribal practices, and to see, so your father describing these Christian missionaries jumping into that world, going for it, to minister, to feed, to do all the things that you're describing your mother was doing is pretty amazing. It reminds me of that Christian missionaries are the toughest people on earth. Something that Eric Hoffer would agree with in True Believer, which what we just reviewed. And you had something?
Yeah, I was going to share, Paul, that you mentioned your mom and being a nurse, and for some reason I didn't know that. I know more about your father, but your mom, and I was thinking about your wife. What ways has she been come alongside you and worked with you, and even your children during this last, like you said, over 20 years? What are some things that you've taken and saying, wow, this has been great, or maybe it hasn't, but I would assume it has. But can you share?
Well, first of all, when just want to, when you make the decision to get up and leave the United States
Sure.
and move to a Southeast Asian country, and like I remember we first moved there, and we just moved into this kampung kind of. Kampung is like maybe like the Spanish word barrio. It's like the deep inner city. And we just moved into this little house in this little alley, and it was just filthy and poverty everywhere, and always people stealing, and to be honest with you, a lot of people try it. They kind of fantasize about it. They think, wow, that would be awesome to go and go live in a faraway place and have this cool life and this adventure. And then they actually get there and they can't even handle it for a few weeks, let alone, build a life. And my wife, Cindy, was just born for that. And so she can go live anywhere, and she has just, her value system is just perfect. And so, of course, it was a huge financial loss moving from the States, and going on the kind of salary that I have and moving to that. But for my wife, that was no problem at all. So she's always been very, very supportive of that, very strong. She's really, like I mentioned, our teacher training program. So these would be college age students. So we have about 75 in the program here now that are going through a 4-year. It's kind of like working towards your bachelor's degree. So they live in a dorm, 3 dorms, and they're all kind of clustered, right? Like my house is, I'm in my office right now. My house is right across the street. And so we have this community right here. And it's kind of like 24/7, it's us with these 75 future teachers.
Wow.
Right? So they're learning in our school, and they're taking classes, and they're like teachers' aides and that kind of thing. So then they come over at night and they hang out at our house, and my wife is always just so receptive and excited to see them. She teaches them. So she's really more focused there than at Charis. And so, and she just, it's impossible to exaggerate just how much a good wife, just helps a man. I mean, I'm just telling you, like,
I was gonna say, it sounds like you're a very rich man. I mean, you're very wealthy.
when you are working really hard outside, and you come back to your house, and everything is clean, and everything is organized, and meals are just really good, and the home is just filled with harmony and peace, and the kids are doing great. It's just like, so it would be impossible for me to have accomplished whatever I have, without that. So, so thank you for asking about that. So.
Well, it's a good segue to Saya. I know that sounds weird though, because I was going to mention Cindy, and so I don't know if you remember this, Paul, but I was your TA.
You were my TA too.
Yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah.
I was your TA, so I got to see the work of Paul Richardson, and
in the very beginning.
In the very beginning, and what's interesting is that, just to give context for people, we were working in Compton in the mid-90s. The kind of violence that was going on at that time was hard. It's very hard to describe it. In fact, I was taking some classes at the time at Long Beach State. I got my degree at Long Beach State. And to me, it was just, this is what happened today. And the professor and the students thought I was lying, or it couldn't have been right. Mm-hmm. But you and Cindy sometimes would come in, and the way you engaged as a teacher, the way that you connected. Now, Compton, 75% Latino, maybe 70, 30% African-American, no problem, because Paul just walked in. And
yeah, it fit right in.
It didn't matter. It might have mattered in the beginning, but the way you connected was a masterclass for me. And so, what was your experience like?
I loved it, to be honest with you. In fact, we were looking for a house in Compton.
Oh,
wow.
We were living in East LA, of course, right?
Yep.
You know, right around the corner from the church.
We were roommates before you were married. Remember, we were roommates. Keen, Alan, Brett. It was a party every day. Those are the days.
Great days.
I can't believe you wanted to live in Compton.
Paul, we were roommates twice. McFerrin House the first time.
Okay.
Remember that? Monterey Park. Sorry, go on.
We were very close, Ruben.
Yeah, right. Not as close as...
I don't know. You forgot that I was your TA. How close were we?
You live with my brother-in-law, right? That was another story.
Don't bring that up.
Remember that, Paul?
He's trying to forget that. What were you saying, Paul? Sorry.
What was I saying?
Oh, my Compton. You want to live in Compton. Wow.
Hey, so I would go down on Sunday mornings, you know, and then just pick up. I would borrow Alan Kick's truck, I think. Yeah. Did he had like a Jeep Cherokee?
Yes. Yes, he did.
So I would borrow that every Sunday morning, and I would go down to Compton and just pick up however many kids could fit in the back of that thing.
That's right.
And then I would bring them down the freeway down into East LA, and they would go to church. They loved it. Wow. And remember, we would take them like down to Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely.
Camping on the beach and hiking up in the...
They were blown away. I mean, they loved it. Some of them had never been to the beach, and it was some culture shock for us to hear some of this.
Wow. Never seen the ocean, and they're like 10 miles from the beach, right? Wow. And for some reason, just the cultural thing, the danger, the gangs, it never bothered me. It never was like afraid for me. Probably the hardest thing was all the funerals. It was just like one time I had 4 funerals in 1 month.
Jeez. Yeah.
Every weekend in 1 month, I lost one of my kids to gang violence.
That was really hard.
That was just crazy, wasn't it?
It was crazy. It was so crazy. The blood, I mean, it was a bloodbath. And as a teacher, you're working with these kids. Yeah. I remember you told me, I don't know if you remember this kid. I walked in, I'm sure you do, but it's been so many years since we've talked, but I walked in and I remember you coming up to me and you saying, "Did you hear about David?" That's the first thing that came out of your mouth. Did you hear about David? And I knew. And it's such a blow because he's one of them that we're bringing to church and taking to places. And what does that do to you, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was hard. That was really hard emotionally, just psychologically for me.
Yeah. But I think, Paul, I mean, maybe I've shared this with other people over the years. I go, once you've worked there, I think it helped build the confidence for the future. I mean, I feel like you say, wow, I did that and I worked with some tough situations, not only kids, but even some administrators and even parents. But I did that. And so it kind of said, at least to myself, I said, you know what, I could probably do anything. I could. So it helped me in later on in my career. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but it was a nice starting. Yeah.
I think you're onto something there because that's been true in my life. And I would say, you know, I've never been in anything remotely like that ever since. And so, like, for example, this is a whole different thing, but I got called to the capital city. All right. So it's like, I had to get on a plane. So I go there and I'm interrogated by these government people like the whole day. And it's all about what I do, where am I, you know, how do I get my salary and what's my purpose being here and everything. And to me, honestly, it was just kind of fun. It was like, it was just this challenge, this puzzle. Can I figure this out? Can I pass this test? You know, and maybe that's like, you know, 7 years in LA, in a deep city, and working with really, really challenging situations. So, hey, by the way, I don't know if you remember. Okay, so after the site that you were working with me at, Ruben, then I got a chance to go and open my own site. But it was also in Compton, but on the other side, right? So I had
Was it Lime Street or Alondra? Alondra.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
And
had been working with Pyrus and
yeah,
Bloods.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, and the same.
Yeah, so couldn't let the Crips in there. That would be a
Right.
bloodbath.
Yeah.
So I got moved to the other side of town, and then all my students are Crips. So for one thing, really hard to adjust to that.
Yeah.
Because I actually built up a huge animosity without realizing it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, but at this other school, then I got, really close to some of the kids. And one of them is Tebow. His name is Tebow. And he would come with me to church every Sunday. And so Tebow had a spiritual experience. Okay. And this one trip we took to the beach and he was baptized. And so then he came to me just like a week later and he just said, I make a lot of money selling drugs. The temptation is too big. What am I supposed to do? I said, do you know anyone where you can get out of here and just go get some space from this, living in this this environment that you grew up in? And he said, yeah, I have an uncle in Oklahoma. So I said, why don't you give him a call and see if you go live with him for a while? And he literally left the next morning, took a bus to Oklahoma, and then I never saw him after that. Okay. Then thank God for Facebook. So he contacts me. Wow. He contacts me and this will be like 15, 20 years later, on Facebook. And he's like, Mr. Richardson.
Oh, gee.
So he's got a family, he's got these kids, he's a truck driver, but he actually bought his own truck. He owns his own company. So then he actually tried to come out here and visit me here. And it was just crazy. He had bought his ticket and then he was literally on the way to the airport and his mom freaked out so bad that he's going, so he finally just gave into the pressure and he contacted me and said, hey, I can't come. But then I was in the States for Christmas to see my kids, right?
Yeah.
3 months ago. And guess who comes to visit me near Fresno in Greeley?
No way.
Tebow. Oh man, it was just so good to see him. And that was one of those things where like, wow, I was a part of just pouring my life into this guy. He's now probably, I don't know, late 30s. I don't know. But, and I knew him when he was 16.
Yeah, he's, Paul, I hate to say it, but
might be in his 40s, dude.
He's in his mid 40s.
Yeah, I don't realize how old I am.
I know.
What does that make us? I guess
we were kids when we worked at SEA, though. In all fairness, we were pretty young. But
doesn't that make it worthwhile? I mean, that's an incredible story. I mean, that must be goosebumps when you first heard from him. That must have been awesome.
It just means so much. And then he gave me this coffee mug, or he brought me this coffee mug, and it said, "In an emergency." It says like, in an emergency, contact Paul, the fountain of all wisdom. It's kind of a joke, but he gives me that. And he's just so grateful. He goes, thank you so much. He said, you saved my life, and man, just having that. So that one kid, I mean, there were a lot of kids we poured into, right?
Sure.
But that one still remembered and came back kind of like, the 10 that walked away from Jesus and then just the one came back. Kind of felt like that.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more, but that one came back.
Yeah, I risked my life for you guys. Where are you now?
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I did have a very off-topic question, but before I do you have anything else for our friend?
No, I mean, I just thinking that I was looking forward to talking to you, and I will say one thing, Paul. And I just had this back in my mind for years, and it was something that you and I talked about. And I don't think you remember this conversation. We were both back at the old church sitting down, and we were both working on our masters. I think you were working on administrative, right? You worked on your administrative credential, and I was working on history. And you looked at, this is before you decided to go overseas, and you're like, well, maybe I should have done history. And I'm thinking to myself, no, maybe I should have done administration. Oh, yeah. And then you went with it. And then I always thought about it. I go, Paul was on the right track. I mean, God was really, he already had Paul to do what he was going to do. And you made such wise choices then. And I don't think you were sure yet. And then once it opened up for you to go overseas and work and what you're doing and all the wonderful things you shared with us tonight, I think back on that and I go, Paul, you had it, Paul. You made the right choice.
Amazing. You remember that.
I totally remember it. I go, wow.
God has a purpose in everything. And many times we don't know. Mm-hmm. For example, I spent 6 years working in restaurants when I was a teenager. Okay, all the way from high school through college. And, I worked as a busboy and as a waiter. And I feel like now, and I often tell people, my 6 years working in restaurants was a more valuable education than my college degree. Because I worked in Pasadena, okay? And so you had a lot of San Marino people coming to go out to eat, kind of, wealthy people, so very picky. And difficult people, and I was just trained year after year to deal with difficult people and just keep my cool and just handle it. And it goes against my nature because by my nature I'm very emotional and hot-tempered by my nature. But just it was like God was bringing me through this training, just every day dealing with and with coworkers and stuff too, and dealing with high pressure. And having to remember, kind of like someone ordered something, and they don't want sugar in their tea or whatever, and you just have to, like, on a really busy night, your brain, it's just so good, it just makes you smarter. And I had that experience, and I just think, wow, that was so, like, God just used that like boot camp, to build me mentally and to know how to deal with challenging people and kind of build my EQ there. Yeah. So big time. I just think, wow,
for sure.
God Absolutely. Has a purpose for everything.
It really does build those skills, those patience, and really biting your tongue, and really you're a server. You're serving, and I agree. I agree with you on that. I opened the show with talking about you making a nice seafood meal for all of us. It didn't sound like a big deal. It doesn't sound like it, but it kind of was, because you made it for strangers, really. And the other thing is, remember, it was a very big deal to me because my diet was terrible. It was Domino's pizza, 7-Eleven burritos. So that was big. And I started rethinking my food choices. But you taught me a lot of things. So this is gonna be very shallow, but we covered the big stuff. But you really taught me how to look at football differently. You did, yeah. I wasn't really
my language. Okay.
What's that?
All right, now we're talking my language.
Okay, good, because the question I have for you is, how do you feel? How are the Rams going to do this year with Matthew Stafford as their quarterback? Before you answer, I want to remind you that they traded 2 first-round draft picks for him, 1 third-rounder, and Jared Goff, which you might have your own opinions on him. But how do you feel about the trade? How is he going to do?
Well, I'm excited for the change, but it's bittersweet as a Rams fan. I'm a Rams fan. Like I used to wear Rams underwear and socks when I was a teenager.
That really went south fast.
I didn't mean to give you the visual there, but that's how passionately dedicated I was. That was the Eric Dickerson, that whole era. So then they moved to St. Louis, and I felt like almost like when your girlfriend breaks up with you. So I'm like, forget it. I wanted nothing to do with the St. Louis Rams, but then they came home. So the girlfriend comes back. Right? So now,
thanks for the analogy, Paul.
Okay, bittersweet, because Jared Goff was actually had 2 very, very solid years as a quarterback. Remember that game against the Kansas City Chiefs? It was Thursday Night Football.
Of course. That was one of the best games ever.
It was an incredible game. It was just on the edge of your seat. And Jared Goff was he was the gunslinger. He was the winner. He was dominant. Yeah. And he was just like, the ball was just going deep down the field, connecting. That guy we traded. But for some reason, for the last 2 years, which is like, and I watch all the games and I just can't understand, how did he get so bad? You know? It's just like, wow. And I'm going, who is, like, did someone else come in and like put a Jared Goff mask on? Because he was just throwing interceptions and looking incompetent. And so it didn't, I fully understood the decision, but it's just like, wow, how can someone show so much capability and possibility and then regress? And yes, you can say, yeah, he lost Todd Gurley. The offensive line wasn't that great, you know, as good as it was during those years. But still, I think after that Super Bowl, it just shook the Super Bowl shook his confidence. And I think he just never recovered. So
you think that was it, huh?
And there was a game against Chicago in Chicago that in that season, 2018, freezing cold. And so now I spent time in Chicago because 2 of my kids have gone to school at Wheaton. My son Steven is studying there now. Okay. And I've been there in the winter. It's like, I was there, it was 17 degrees below zero. And so this was a night like that. So here comes Jared Goff. He's not even wearing gloves. And I'm going, oh man, this is going to be a long night. He was just totally unprepared. And the Chicago Bears just dominated the Rams that night, you know. And then he just, like, that game was, wow. He wasn't quite himself after that. And then the Super Bowl just kind of finished him off.
Yeah, I think so.
There seems to be a new energy to the Rams, and especially with this new stadium. I will make a comment about my team, because I can't let you talk about the Rams that long. When you go back, if you come, you know, next time you're back, it might be interesting to see a game, because Chris Collinsworth had gone to see, I think it was Collinsworth, had gone to see the new Rams stadium in Inglewood, and he says, this is the best stadium in the league by far. He goes, I don't see how anybody could ever top this. And then he said, until I went the next week to Raider Stadium. Oh. He goes, and I think it's maybe a little bit better. So I had to say something about my team. I couldn't let you go that long. But Paul.
Well, like I said, you asked. And that's I'll just talk all day.
Right.
So thank you for stopping me.
I appreciate the Rams. I like that they're better. I like that whole division. I like those teams. The 49ers, you know, all those teams, Seattle. This is cool.
We got to have you back. Is it okay sometime in the future, near future, you come back, maybe even help us review a book, maybe, or a movie?
Or maybe.
Remember, I recommended that movie, Charis Academy.
We're going to see that.
We're going to watch that next.
Don't be afraid to, you know, pan it. Just because I said it's my favorite movie.
Paul,
come on, this guy.
Do I strike you as somebody who's afraid to pan something?
You're pretty hard on your brother there, Ruben.
Thank you, Paul. Finally, somebody.
Wait a minute, Paul. You don't think I should be harder on this guy?
No,
Mr. Chips?
Mr. Chips is a good movie.
Sometimes.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
It's like you're trying to create this.
Thank you.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think he's nicer on Pod and Deliver.
He's kind of like, yeah, you're right. I can see that, but you won't let him.
Paul, 100%. I give it straight, because the worst thing, I'm a YouTube watcher. The worst thing is fake emotion and fake reaction. I'm anti that. I don't like the fake reactions. He doesn't know how I feel about a movie going in, and I don't know how he feels.
No, we don't want to talk about it.
I just react exactly how I feel, and emotions come out, but everything's real.
But let's just get straight. Paul said you should be a little nicer to me. Thanks, Paul. Oh, that was straight.
The one thing I disagree with Paul today.
I like it's fun to listen to. You got it. You have good chemistry.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for coming. Thank you for
maybe just push back a little bit harder. That's
yeah. I mean, you know what? I'm gonna start doing that, and then he's gonna. It'll be I'm gonna do that. Thank you, brother.
Paul, thank you for the years of friendship. Thank you for being a great mentor, teacher, and for coming on our show today. We appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. God bless you guys. See you.
Bye, Paul.
Bye.